Good evening, everyone. Get this over at my height. Um, Welcome to the Baker's Green Acres Anyone Can Farm Homestead question and answer show on Wednesday nights. Mark will be coming in. Meanwhile, you get me off, apparently. Um, I've got Wellness Wednesday. I love nature and I love health. And so I love teaching natural health, ways that nature has your back so that you can enjoy the health that you were meant to have. It's your birthright. So, welcome, Virgil. Welcome, Keith. So, that's what I do in part. And I coach people, which basically means that I help you get really clear about what it is that you want. And then I help you with tips, tricks, hacks, because willpower will not help you be healthy. It helps you make decisions and white knuckle through things, but it doesn't help in the long run. So having the tricks of the trade to help is a big deal. And one of the biggest tricks of the trade is having a mentor that can see what you don't see and has been there before, so they know the ropes and will hold you accountable to what it is that you really want anyway. That's the one thing that people always tell me is, well, I know what I should do, but I just don't do it. Well, why don't you do it? Let's talk about that, because that's an interesting place to go too. So that's why I'm here. And that's why you get me a little bit, because what we do as farmers, you're your own best farmer. So when you're taking care of yourself, just like you would take care of your soil or your plants or your animals, you are going to enjoy the health that you want them to enjoy out there. And that's how it should be. Everybody should win on the farm. We know a lot of farmers that have really struggled, and it's gotten hard because they're not taking care of themselves the same way they take care of their farm. And then you burn out or you wear out, all these things that happen. You don't have to. So this week, I listened to a podcast about gut health and immunity, because everything starts in your gut. Your gut is sort of like the soil for your farm. If the flora and fauna, you need organic material and all the little microbes in your gut, just like in the soil, in order to digest your food, pull out the nutrients, support your cellular metabolism, support your glandular system, your immune system, you name it, on down the line, your mental clarity, moods, hormones, all of it. Absolutely all of it starts in your gut. If your gut's not working right, the rest of it won't. They know that people who get sicker with the virus have poor gut health as a rule. They have other things going on. My friend here, the moth. A lot of which are related to inflammation, which starts in the gut, every bit. One of the big things that people talk about then is probiotics, which are, supplements are, if you are sick and you need to get better, supplements are the thing, because they are a natural medicine, but they should be used as medicine. If you are relatively healthy or you don't exactly need a supplement for something, your lifestyle should keep you well. Lifestyle habits make all the difference. And your food is a really common place to start. So gut health, probiotics led to fermented foods. As I was reading, this was kind of funny. There were, until I got into the alternative writing people, all the mainstream people that came up on Google first said, well, don't not take your probiotic because fermented foods, it boiled down to nobody has studied fermented foods like they've studied probiotics. Well, follow the money. Somebody's trying to sell you something. But fermented foods are full of probiotics. And not only probiotics, they're full of a lot of enzymes and a lot of the other components that help your body unlock the enzymes and actually use them. So it's a whole food. Anytime that you can eat whole, lifeful food, that's the name of the game. In Ayurvedic thinking, which really embraces following nature, seasonal eating is the way to go. And fermented foods are winter foods. They are generally heating. They're often dairy-based, not all of them. And in fact, when you start really running through the list, not a lot of them are. But all of those things are heating. And they support your digestive system when it's burning really strong, but in a very small window. So we do a lot of things that really challenge our digestive system in the winter. And fermented foods really help build in the cushion for that. The other thing traditionally that's really cool about fermented foods, especially if you're a homesteader and you're trying to use and eat what you grow, is fermented foods are a way to preserve the harvest, especially in the northern climates. We were in Texas and they were harvesting stuff out of the gardens. We were so jealous, so jealous. Tomatoes, fresh tomatoes in January. But here in northern Michigan, that is not the case. Tomatoes have been gone for a very long time. So we have to preserve the harvest somehow. Prior to canning and drying and all of those processes, they fermented everything. So that was how they stored a lot of their winter food, was as ferments. And then they had their red meats that they harvested in the fall, and that was their diet. And people stayed amazingly vital into their later years that way. A lot of disease and infections happened, but the overall vitality of the population was really high, because they were eating seasonally. Your body is designed to love ferments right now. So I'm really curious what fermented foods you guys like to eat. What ones are you familiar with, and what do you really enjoy? While you're commenting on those in the chat, I brought a couple with me. I made a video today for the people in my Good Living group, and I'm going to follow up on it. So if you're in there, keep watching, because in about 3 days, today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, on Saturday, I'll be straining off the gut shots that I started today. And so I will show you that. This is a really easy one. I started these today after reading about that. We eat kimchi a lot. Oh yeah, sauerkraut. Yeah, Justin, beer. Beer is a fermented food. Absolutely. That's one reason that they used to drink hard cider. And they would get roots. Sarsaparilla root beer was originally a fermented root. So I don't know how much that does for your digestion, Justin. Moderation and balance is one of the keys with all of the fermented foods, because you don't need a lot of them, because there's so much goodness packed in them. If you eat them as a condiment, that's about right. Or a snack, or with your meal in small amounts. You shouldn't be snacking, because your digestion wants to work and then rest, work and rest. So if you're sipping your kombucha, while you're eating, you are helping to feed your digestive process and spark up your digestive fire so that you can really process what you're eating. Kimchi, oh yeah, we have been enjoying that. I didn't bring it. Lucky Seoul, but it's spelled like Seoul, Korea. Kimchi is fermented. I don't even remember why I was looking for electronic stuff. That's what it was. And I was in Walmart and they had this wonderful fermented kimchi and it's pretty darn cheap. It's cheaper at Walmart than on Amazon. So, tip for the day, fermented kimchi at Walmart. It's really good. But this is, with the lights, you can't see too well. This is a jar of cabbage juice. I just put cabbage and a bit of salt, covered it with water in my blender, blended it up, and it's in the jar. 3 days. That's all it needs to ferment. And then I'll strain it, and it's ready to go. Good to drink. Really tasty. And for any of you that like any of that fermented stuff, you'll have to give it a go. I made one batch where I added everything. I added some ginger root, which since I'm blending, I didn't even have to peel it. So it's really easy. Throw in some ginger root, red pepper, cayenne pepper, just a little bit of kick, a little more heat, and some caraway seeds for a little flavor, plus the salt. So we have 2 different batches going now. We'll see what we like. But it's just a great way to preserve what you have in your garden, supplement naturally, 100% naturally, in a complete whole package, because nature serves up package deals. All of the food in nature come with everything you need to digest them, as opposed to what you get in a bottle, which is usually just components. It doesn't have the whole package that nature put together for you. Oh yeah, Vietnamese restaurant. They would have the best kimchi. Definitely. So, fermented foods. Oh, I brought this one too. And again, the lights. You can't see. There, you can see. It's orange. It's yellow. This is golden milk kefir that I made. I'm not a big kefir fan. In all honesty, I don't eat a lot of dairy. Hard cheese is considered a fermented food because the lactose in it is digested through the cheese and the aging process. So I like cheese. Yogurt is okay now and again. This summer, I liked yogurt and granola for breakfast on our Fridays when we were running. But that's about it. So this kimchi, or this, kefir, I took my spiced honey with a lot of turmeric and ginger in it and some other warming spices, mixed that in with a little of maple syrup to sweeten the deal. And then I added the kefir culture, and I just stuck it behind the wood stove for the day. And it made beautiful kefir. I drink a very small amount of it just before a meal, usually supper, because that's when I think about it when I'm digging through for leftovers for dinner. And it really helps the digestion. I've noticed it like perks up my stomach, and I'm really ready to eat when I sit down then, instead of feeling that heavy, kind of sluggish feeling that, especially in the winter, you can feel. Your digestion gets colder in the winter. Colder and dry. That's winter. So these all help to warm it up. They add moisture. A lot of them. They're wet. Kimchi should be moist. It's not dry. Salad is dry and rough. Not in the winter. But these vegetables, if you get sauerkraut, it's soft, it's moist. This stuff, meat. These are fermented meat. I don't like a lot of pork. I really don't. I can let a pork chop go by, even our good Mangalitsa pork chops go by. No problem. But I like sausage. And these cured sausages, the cured meats, are considered fermented, especially the sausages, because you add a you add stuff to the words went out of my head, to help them actually ferment. And you got to leave them in a warm place to get the bacterial action going to cure them and dry them. So all of these are your winter food. Enjoy them. I'll be actually putting to the video about the gut shots on my YouTube channel, Abundant Living, your health and life coach, or something like that. Healthy life coach. So you can check out the whole video there. But eat some fermented foods. Don't buy a pill. Not unless you're sick and you really need it. Just enjoy your food. Good, life-full food. The real stuff. You can totally feed yourself off your homestead that way. Mark's going to come in with questions. We got a few that we got from this week. We've got some starter ones. If you have home questions about anything homesteading, farm, and you know he talks about anything, or health, put them in the chat and we'll get to them. I have a bunch of these yet. Joe has been traveling all over. He was in Florida. He met with a company. When you come to our class, you are going to get all your pictures of you. Any picture that we take, or that Joe at least takes, that has your face in it, because Sean Kelly has helped us to acquire the ability to use a software that they developed that is really cool. So those are some of the things too. Joe has been toting his camera case with these on him all over as he's traveling and doing his picture things, and you can be like Joe. I love all those be like. Oops. And have your sticker. You know what? I even had it here. I can do this. I can put the link in the chat and you can get yours, and I will send them to you in a really cool envelope with a nice card and a little note, because, you know, it's a season of connection and that's what it's all about. But you can sport your support for, okay, thank you, Lorna. I don't know if it went out to everybody, maybe just YouTube. But you can sport your support and show that you are part of the tribe. Absolutely. And help us grow things out, get bigger and better so we can offer you more. We need a place for me to do a cheese class. Right now, the shop is not going to cut it. I don't have a kitchen to teach it in. So that's one of our goals, is building out the barn basement so that we have a place to teach. We have a good place to host people, because it isn't just a how-to. When you come to the classes, if you watch any of Joe's class videos, it's one of the things that they talked about was it isn't just how to make bacon, how to cut a pig, how to raise a chicken. In March, we're doing a cured meats pork preservation class. It isn't just how to make sausages and legs of prosciutto that you can hang for all your friends to look at. It's an experience. You spend time talking with people, learning a lot of other stuff that's not on the syllabus. You get to pick our brains about everything, anything. If you're here, you get to see the pigs and how we do it. So it's a whole experience. You get to see how our family operates and what our kids can do. Homestead Hog Harvest people know Mark tell our boys, let the students do it, because they're in there showing and demonstrating too much. It's the experience. So that's what these are going to help us do, is build out the experience for you so we can plant more homesteader seeds and water them and grow them. I think Mark's ready to do questions, so I will turn the chair over to him. And again, if you would put your questions in caps, it helps me pull them out of the chat so you guys can chatter and have a great time. And I'll see your questions and get them to Mark.
Where are you going to sit?
On a chair.
In here? No, that's fine. She said there's no room down that end of the table anymore. Nice and warm in here. All right, greetings. All right, we got some peoples. We got Lorna. We got host. Justin's with us. Justin put a statement in all caps.
Talking about a Vietnamese restaurant down there that has the best kimchi.
Okay. All right. How is everybody? I'm doing all right. I made a video today, put it on the Mark Baker Facebook.
I shared it onto the Baker's Green Acres
Okay.
Facebook page, so it's
Cool.
there.
Yeah, just so you could see what we did today. We had a task to do. One of our customers, I guess this is going to be his third year getting pigs from us, wanted 3 of them this year, 1 big one and 2 smaller ones. And we're going to do it Saturday, and then it was 1 degree. And then we're going to do it Tuesday, and we were missing a couple guys. So we pushed it off to today and said, nothing can stop us today. And the wind came up and it started snowing. And I think it went down to 12. But nothing could stop us. So we got it done. So all those pigs are down in the butcher shop, laying out on tables in halves. And tomorrow my job will be to break them. So I'll just break them into primals and let them sit for another night. And then probably Friday, Jill and I will go down and start cutting them up and packaging them up, getting them ready to go out the door. I'm doing okay. My tooth that's broken into the jawline really started giving me a hard time today. I came in for lunch. It was cold, like I said. I came in for lunch and had something warm to eat, and oh man, did it start bugging me. And the doc gave me some Tylenol 3, I think, but there was only 12 of them in there. And so I thought, I got to be, And I took 2 of them last night before bed, and I slept really bad, like fitful all night long, kept waking up, and yeah. And I took 1 at lunch, and then after we went out, and I had taken, and then I just took, so I've had 3 of them today. And I was thinking, I can't wait until Monday to have tooth pulled out. But then I thought, wait a minute, I could just call up there tomorrow and ask him if he would prescribe some more, because I still have Saturday and Sunday to get through, and I have a lot of things that I would like to do. And I know that probably I should be laying low, but that ain't gonna happen. So anyway, here we are. I got a glass of milk, and I'm ready to go. Want to pass this on to you all. I can't show guns or ammunition on here on a live stream, so I'm just going to show you this. We have gone, let's see, I did 3 today. I did 3 down at Sean's place. I did 1. Something just happened.
Oh. There you go.
Okay. And then I did, so 3 today, 3 down at Sean's, and 1 before that. So there. And I did it with round right here. 22 mag VMAX, 30 grain. And it was just a write down and barely any fragments. Okay, let's, somebody's having connect. All right, let's say the cross section of the brain of the pig is like this, and the Russian, it made on this side of the brain cavity. That's it. That's as far as the bullet went. So it went through, you know, and it fragmented out, and any other damage to the animal. Tiny little, I'm just showing the bullet of it, right? It's just a 22 caliber bullet. Little thing. This is not a real one. This is not live. Okay, YouTube. But before we were using a M1, and the bullets were passing all the way through, coming out the side, doing a lot of damage. We did a lot of damage. But I don't know. It seems like you go through phases, but here I'm 7 for 7, and I think I have arrived. I have a lot of confidence in this now to knock pigs down. So anyway, I'm ready to go. Got questions? I got answers.
Haven't gotten any questions from the peanut gallery yet.
All right.
You got 1, 2, and 3 here.
Keep in mind, I am under the... Tim Stolfus. Mark, in feeding acorns and hickory nuts, have you noticed which species of white oaks and hickory produce the best nuts for pigs? I haven't had any hickory nuts, so I can't tell you about that. I've read that sawtooth oaks produce tons of acorns, but be bitter. Thoughts on this? I'm looking to plant a bunch of both these kinds of trees for future nut production. Yeah, if they're saying that sawtooth oaks can be bitter, I think that article probably had to do with people who are eating the acorns. So we don't eat them ourselves. It's on the list of things that, you know, we ought to try. I did see a video at a Mother Earth News conference, the only one I would ever went to, and I was standing there at the trade show, and I watched a video, and it was pretty interesting, and it showed that how they would peel the nuts and how they would soak the meats from the nuts in water and leach out the tannic acid, and that's the real bitter stuff. And when you poured that off, if you tasted it, it was very, very bitter. But if you did it enough, the meats were actually sweet. And probably the sawtooth, there's so much tannic acid in them that you can't get it all out, and you're going to have a bitter there. What I have seen is, you know, we pick up several different types of acorns around here. There's red oaks, white oaks, pin oaks. That's all I really know of. I'm not a real connoisseur of the different types of trees, or expert. I'm expert at other things, but not that. And the ones I really like are the red oaks, because they're about as big as a small plum, you know, maybe a little smaller than that. And they're really easy to pick up. Our nut pickers pick them up really easy, and you just get a lot of tonnage of them. So they seem to be my favorite. And when you load them into the pigs, they like them. And the pin oaks too. You'll find trees that drop thousands and thousands of them, and it's one of those things. Which ones do the pigs like better? I don't know. Ask them. I don't know. Ask them. Has anybody else noticed the argument about, well, if you get the vaccine, when you get COVID, you won't get it as bad? Has anybody heard that argument? What a dumb argument that is. It's like, well, how can you know? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't be the same human being. Maybe if you had a twin, right? Oh, yeah. But it's a dumb argument. It's like saying, that's really crude what I'm thinking. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Sean. And Yardy Bonefish is here with us. Welcome. But that's a really dumb argument. Anyway. Okay, so there you go. Okay. Virgil. I was hoping to get Mark's opinion on a pig food that I found in my local area. I'm looking at this as something to add to their diet, as the scrounging isn't getting any better with the shortages at most places. I still get some bread every 2 weeks, and I am feeding hay also. With the frozen ground, there's not much for them to eat on the land. Anyway, I didn't want to feed something that may not be appropriate for pigs. This feed is no corn or soy. I am not sure if it would be in the hog chow category. Thanks for taking the time to look at this for me. All right, well, see, this is really cool because that is the tag that Virgil took off the bag of feed. Right? Now, you see, I'm afraid that it says crude protein right there. Crude protein, 4%. That's your killer right there. This is hog chow for growing pigs from 40 to 260 pounds. Crude protein, minimum 16%. Crude fat, minimum 2.76%. That crude protein is your problem right there. Okay, because in this is a hog chow, and what they're doing here is they're saying to you, here's the hook right here. They're saying to you, no corn, no soy, right? That's not really your enemy, corn and soy. Not really. The problem with corn and soy is that it is genetically modified, a genetically modified organism, right? And the fact that it's genetically modified is not the real problem. It's the fact that they genetically modify it so that they can spray glyphosate directly on it and it won't kill it. And then you get it, or your animals get it. So you're getting a nice dose of herbicide on your soy or corn, right? So that's not good. Dose of herbicide is not good. Again.
Is it having connection issues?
No, it went to.
Oh, it's because I'm plugged in to charge. Here, I'll fix that. It won't do it again.
Still.
Then I have to go sit by the stove too.
Well, it's not. I don't know where it is. Okay. I saw something on Mangalitsa pasture raised last night. Somebody asked about feeding corn to Mangalitsa, and an expert chimed in and even said he was an expert. And he said, oh, no, Mangalitsa pigs love corn, and it's okay to feed it to them. Well, it's kind of a thing. If you feed corn, you're going to see discolored fat. You're going to see fat that is not snowy white. You're going to see fat that turns out to be kind of yellowish, and it doesn't really look that good. And this fat right here, you see that, even though that appears to be a little bit dull, it's only because it's slightly oxidized, because it's been hanging there. But if I shaved that back and shaved it down like an inch, it would be white, and even if you look closely, sort of pink. It's like a little bit of a reddish. But Verge, the thing that's in this that is your enemy is that crude protein minimum 16%. So, okay, you got crude protein. What is it? Noodles? Is it beef cows? Where did they get the protein? The reality of it is, these outfits, they regulated by the state or the well, I'm not sure whether it's the state or this is Minnesota, but here I believe it is the USDA that regulates them. And the USDA says it's okay to feed pigs to pigs. So that's really convenient, because the huge slaughter plants that they have, there's only a handful of them in the United States. They got a tremendous amount of stuff that, what are we going to do with this stuff? What do you do with the snouts and the buttholes and the hides off of these factory farmed animals? What do you do with all that stuff? Well, the short answer is what they do is they pulverize it. So they grind it, and then they dry it, and then they pulverize it again. Or they grind it, dry it, and then pulverize it, make a powder out of it. Powder is what they're using for the crude protein. So that's the problem, because the pigs that they're using to derive that crude protein are pigs that are coming out of hog houses, the factory farm type places. Never mind that it's a rotten place for an animal to live and grow up. Never mind that. That's the point here. The problem is that they can't afford to have a 5,000 pig house. Pigs get sick. Contract, they'll put in there that they have a feed with so much percent antibiotic, right? And there's other reasons why they do the antibiotic. It shuts down the immune system on the animal, and so the animal puts more of the energy of the feed into growing, but it masks the symptoms of quite a few things. And then when the refuse from that slaughterhouse is pulverized and ground and then dried and then put back in the feed, you get those little time bombs in there in the feed. So this crude protein thing that you've got here could really be a problem for your herd health. It could. When we lived in Montana, a little gross story here. That's where we started raising pigs, and we got just little tiny pink pigs from the feed mill, basically. I think I paid $30 for them a piece. And brought them home, and, I didn't know much about farming, so I asked the guy, well, what do you? He says, well, you feed them hog chow. Oh, let me have a bag of that hog chow then. So I got a bag of hog chow, and it was the funnest thing. We had 3 little pigs, and also big and really big, and the rest is history. But at one point, one of my kids, it was actually Sam, he was still in diapers. Jill was doing his diaper change, and there was this little creature in his diaper, and it was about 6 inches long, and it was kind of pink, and it was moving. It was a worm. And so she took him and the worm into the base, to the base clinic, and said, "What do we do? Got a little worm action here." And they said, "Gee, that's really weird. We don't see except for places, where there's agricultural activity going on." And my wife says, "Well, we've got a couple pigs, and we have some chickens and stuff." And I was a GI. Most GIs don't have livestock, and I wasn't like I was trying to hide it or anything. But and they said, "Oh, that's probably where it came from. Yeah, it probably came from the pigs." I'm like, okay. When I moved here, it was actually our veterinarian that told me that you don't want to use hog chow because they employ people at the plants where they make the hog chow that defecate into the feed vats, and that's where the roundworms come from. That's how come the pigs get roundworms. That's what she told me. And all right, I guess she knows what she's talking about. But as time has gone by, I've gotten to know more and more people who are kind of into this whole farm thing and know what they're talking about. And what she's saying could very well be true. But I think it's more likely that the eggs, are passed on and on and on. And after a while, they kind of aggregate, all the nasties that are going through those hog houses, they kind of aggregate. And people come to our farm and they're amazed, and they'll say, "Wow, I don't smell pig. I don't smell pig at all." And that is because we don't use hog chow. If you use hog chow, that crude protein, you're feeding pigs to pigs. And boy, you're going to know it, because that stuff stinks. It stinks. It's like dog manure times 2. And, dog manure is bad when they're eating like Alpo, like meat. When they eat like kibbles, it's not near as bad. But so I would say, don't do that. If you're going to go to the mill and you're going to get a feed, right, in the winter months when times are tough, scrounge is hard to find, get whole grains. So if you can get a whole grain mix, and even if it's, so many percent corn, so much percent soy, so much percent wheat, barley, and whatever else they have. Let's see. Flax, peas, ingredient statement. It says flax meal, peas, wheat, barley. So if you could just get wheat, barley, and peas, if you could just get that, but whole, don't let them grind it on you, because they're going to say, "Well, we can grind that," and that way it'll be more palatable for the pigs. They always say that, and it makes sense to us, right? It makes sense to us, but don't do it. Don't do it, because when they add value to it, they're also going to add dollars to it. If you get whole grains by the bag, it will be far cheaper than if they have to process it. And then you can buy yourself a bag of loose mineral, right? And when you're preparing feed for your pigs, you'll do something like this. You'll scoop, or you'll take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it like halfway, a little over halfway, or maybe 3/4 of the way with that grain, and then throw in a handful or a half a handful of mineral, and then fill it the rest of the way with water, and keep it like on the back porch so it doesn't freeze. If you can keep it in the house, that's even better. Then it'll be nice and warm. And those kernels will absorb that and they'll puff up. And if you can, let it sit there for a couple, 3 days, whatever it takes, it's going to vary from grain to grain. It's going to vary because if a grain is quite fresh, it's not going to absorb very much moisture. But if it's quite old, then it will puff right up. It'll take in a lot more. And then when you feed that, especially in the wintertime, you're feeding like a gruel or a mush to your pigs. And, they'll digest it better, and you shouldn't see a whole lot of grain coming out on the ground. But if you do, it's not always a bad thing. People think that, oh, well, some grains are passing through here. That's not good. Well, stuff does pass through. If it's ground, you don't see it. And so you think, whoa, we're in good shape. But pigs always eat more than they can really digest effectively. Yeah. So let's see, what else was I going to say? And feeding hay too. You can feed hay. You can douse hay down with water, get it soggy like a soggy salad, and feed that. They will eat that, especially if you throw some mineral on it. A lot of the mineral is salt. You going? All right, I'll see you. Bye-bye. My daughter's heading out for a little trip, so she's saying bye to me. What else was I going to say about feeding? Oh, here's something for you to know. When you buy feed that is ground, all right, let's say you buy that feed, it doesn't say on here when it was ground. That'd be kind of nice to know, because let's say it was ground 4 years ago. To you, it looks like feed. You wouldn't know the difference of it. But if you analyze that, a lot of the nutrient has left. When that grain is broken open, it starts to degrade. If it is not broken open, it's kind of sealed in there, hermetically sealed in there, and sort of like an egg, like a chicken egg. You can leave chicken eggs at room temperature, and they're fine for like 100 days. And then they start to lose some of the fluid that's inside, starts to evaporate through the shell. The shell has sort of like a wax on it that's put on there by the chicken. And if you wash that off, your eggs are not going to stay fresh as long as if you left that on. Same thing with your grain. If you leave it hermetically sealed, it's going to be fresher and there'll be more nutrient density in there, right? So if you run a feed mill and you're selling feed to people in the neighborhood, you're selling it by the weight, right? You're not really selling it by the nutrient density, right? Let's say you're selling cabbage to the people in the neighborhood to eat. If you get cabbages that were grown in 2020 and you're selling them in 2021, people are going to say, hey, wait a minute here. This cabbage doesn't look like this year's cabbage. This looks like an old cabbage. Oh, no, this was grown in 1995, but it's still good, right? No, it's not good. It's old, right? But if you're talking grains like wheat, barley, corn, soy, they'll dry up as hard as a rock and there's nothing in them. They almost turn to glass. There's nothing in them. But the guy that runs the feed mill, he gets a great deal on them. I can get a train car load of these for hardly anything. And then once it's ground up, pigs don't care. Pigs will eat it. It's fine. So that's what you're looking at when you buy ground feed, especially if you buy some of the bigger name stuff. You're thinking, oh, well, look at the name on this. Everybody's seen that name. That name's been around forever. I don't want to mention those names, but you know the names we're talking about. They make all kinds of chow. They even make tiger chow. But they're the ones that specialize in buying the cheapest stuff they can find and then slapping a good label on it. And who buys that stuff? Who buys feed from Tractor Supply? Are you still? I hope you're not doing that. I mean, that's like the most expensive feed, and it's probably the crummiest feed that there is. So anyway, the way to go is when you are going to buy whole grain feed from, say, the co-op, if they can't answer you when it was harvested, then say, well, when you can answer that question, then we'll talk. But let's say I don't know, and say, would you mind if I sampled a little bit of that grain there? Yeah, go ahead. Just take one of the pieces of grain and bite it. If it breaks like a piece of glass, no good. If it squishes like a tube of toothpaste, that's still got something in it. That's going to be okay. But you see what happens when they grind it. They let everything escape out of it, Not a good thing to do. And I mean, you can't always do that. I buy chicken feed from an Amish outfit over in Mayo. And, I've talked to them about that. And I talk to them every single time. I want to make sure that this is good, fresh stuff. No, I can't always do that. But if I do buy feed, have to buy whole grain feed, and I'm going to buy a sizable quantity of it, like a semi-load or something. Well, I don't actually buy semi-loads, but I would want to know, was that last year's harvest or is it like 5 years? Because they do pile the stuff up and then they sell it when they get a chance to sell it. And some stuff gets missed and it gets real old and, hey, get that stuff out of here. Just sell it for whatever you can get for it. So there you go. Well, that's all I have for questions. I think. I thought there was 3 of them. Let's see.
Oh, there was. Did you see the chicken one?
No. I didn't take any of the papers. Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. It's usually my fault. I'm new to raising meat birds this year. When should I schedule with the processor? I've heard before I order. Is that right? You could. And I'm talking to you as a processor, but sometimes if you get your chickens and then you try to get them processed very close to 8 weeks after you start them, sometimes they might be a little lagging, and you might have to go 9 weeks or 10 weeks. And it kind of depends on which chicken you get. But generally, if you get the White Mountain Vantress, the broilers, they call them, they go about 8 weeks. 56 days is what they say on a commercial grower. See, that's kind of the problem there too, because you're walking into the same situation as we are walking into with this crude protein here. They will feed chickens to chickens, and you get the same thing going on. So you can wind up with a kind of a health issue by buying chicken feed that's prepared chicken feed. In some cases, it really depends. It's the mill here is not the same as every mill in the country. Actually, we have 2 mills in this town, and I don't use either one of them. But as a processor, I can tell you, people sometimes do make dates with us, and then they have to call and say, hey, I know I have this date, but my birds are not big enough. Can I change it? And I would say I would rather you do that than just not show up. If you make, let's say you're going to get 50 birds, that's a chunk of our time, and I have to have people to cover that. And if you make the appointment, whenever you're going to get the birds, let's say in April, and then 8 weeks later, they're not ready, so I just won't show up. If you do that to us, if you don't show up and you don't call us, then the next time that you call us, we will not take you. We will not take you. We will send you out. Go find someone else, because at this point, there are more birds out there than we can process. So that's a tough situation right there when people do that. Like, we had couple of them. I mean, every season we do. They'll schedule 100 birds, and then we're waiting, and then they don't show up, and then Jill will call them, and they'll say, "Oh, we found somebody else." But we've got it on the schedule, and we've got people standing by waiting for these birds to come. And see, that's another reason why we do not do same day birds. Like, you have to call and make an appointment with us, and they have to be here the night before. Like, if you say, "Oh no, I'm just going to bring them early in the morning," we'll say, "No, you're not. No, you're not." Because if you don't show that day, then we've got people waiting with nothing to do, and you're wasting our time, and time is dollars here. So we don't allow it. We've learned the hard way many, many times. People want to bring them the same day and then stand around and wait for them. And no. You got to bring them the day before. They got to be here between 5 and 8. Yeah, we really box people in, because if we don't, they'll show up at 9 o'clock in the morning and no one's here. And so between 5 and 8, and 8 o'clock comes, swing the gate. You can't bring them then. "Oh, I was 5 minutes late." Hey, 8 o'clock, we're doing something else. We're not waiting around. Yeah, that's the way it's kind of gotten, because there's so many more people that are getting into raising birds. We have to kind of set these parameters, and that's it. And okay. Okay. And our dual purpose chicken's good for meat. In our experience, dual purpose chickens, let's say it's supposed to be a good for laying and good for meat, it will be equally as bad for laying as it is for meat. So it will be not good at either. So if you want a laying chicken, get laying chickens, right? Right, I think one of my favorites is the buff Orpington. That's one of my favorites. And now another favorite is the Jersey Giant. They're pretty good. They're a meat bird. They're a meat bird. But I think my favorite meat bird right now is got to be the Freedom Rangers. They are superb, absolutely superb. They have quite a different personality than the Jersey Giant, and also quite a different personality from the White Mountain Vantress. Right? They're kind of dumb. They're kind of dumb, but they're easy to raise and they grow pretty fast. Right? The Jersey Giant and the Freedom Rangers, they're grass eaters. So if you plant fields for them, like especially if you plant clover, boy, will they clean that stuff up. And they make an exquisite fat. They're extremely fatty bird. It's not mixed in. It's sort of around where the guts are in the back. There's just this rim of, it looks like yolk, right? Looks like chicken yolk, like egg yolk. And it's just pure fat. And that will come right out before you pull the guts out of them. And you save that. And Jill rendered that down. And that was some of the neatest stuff, really good stuff. So where does that fat come from? It's fat that's derived from eating, forages out on the field. So it's yellow like that because it's got sunlight in it. It's actually got rays of the sun. And then when you eat it, you have rays come out your eyes and out the tips of your hair. Only people that are in tune can see it, though. So in my opinion, when they have dual purpose anything, no. It's sort of like a really plush Humvee. No. Humvees are utilitarian. If you want something plush, get a Lincoln Continental, right? But a Humvee, no. Okay, so that's my opinion on that. That's an opinion. You can fact check that with whoever. All right. Is that funny glow I see in your face? No, that must be from my Tylenol 3. All right, Bryce is with us. And Sarah M is with us. One of my new bestest friends. I'm glad you could make it. Oh, tonight I struck it rich. Looking for school buses, right? And here's where I am on that, Sarah. And it's Taylor's the one that sold me on it. He says, well, if you buy a motorhome, they're not made to roll over. That's what he said. But a bus is made to roll over and keep all the little kiddies safe, right? So a bus is a heavy truck chassis, and you have this shell on it that's really well made and all that stuff, and really good engines they put in them that are designed to go 500,000 miles or even more. And then you're just hauling little kids on them. So you never really even work them. They're basically just playing with them. And then they sell them at 150,000 miles. So they're barely broken in. And then you've got some really smart people, I'm finding, that have more time on their hands than I do. And they do these really intricate RV builds on them. Really nice. I mean, some of them are really, really nice. And we were looking at ones that were the higher end ones for like $25,000. And they have, 100,000 miles on the chassis, built to the nines, have anything on there that you could possibly want. And they're selling them for $25,000. The thing is a lot of people cannot overcome the stigma of the school bus thing. They expect you to roll out of there with a joint in your mouth or with a guitar in your hand, like you're the Partridge Family or whatever. But for our purposes, I don't think I would ever stay at a campground. I would always be at someone else's property, some farm, or, worst case scenario, a Walmart parking lot. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to wake up in a Walmart parking lot. No. So I saw a beauty tonight, and I just right here in Michigan too, and it's really nice. When we look at motorhomes, there's some pretty nice motorhomes out there, cheap too, with pretty low miles on them. I'm really surprised, but I'm not as impressed with the motorhomes as I am with what they call schoolies, right? And let's say you brought up, well, what are you going to have, a pusher or a puller? And I'm like, what is that? But now I kind of get that, and I am definitely a puller type guy. I would like the engine in the front. I like that look. I actually like the school bus look if they're done right, and if they're painted really nice, they can really look good. And I'm thinking that I'd like to have a Mangalitsa, just kind of the head and maybe the hooves on it, get a wrap done on the side, and I just think that would look cool as anything. And then build a little deck off the back. It's got an emergency exit in the back, and if you had like a 6-foot deck hanging out, and put your rear lights on there, and then put a little crane out there that we could use for the classes if we had to, and on that deck you could have a set of stairs that go down, and the stairs could be tricked out so that you could run a motorcycle up on there and tie it down, just a enduro. So when you park someplace, and you got to get something from the store, you can just run to the store and get what you need. You don't have to take the whole bus with you. But I'm kind of getting pretty amped up about that whole situation. Sean said something last night about when you come next year. So who knows? Really like to. That was fun. We had a great trip. Met some of the coolest people and really learned a lot about our own operation. And some of the questions were very different than any questions that we've gotten before. It's just this whole thing is kind of ramping up. And we actually met a different class of people than we ever had. And you wouldn't think that there are, classes of people that we haven't met, classifications, I should say. But this group is known as nomads. They consider themselves nomads. And it's a spectrum, but like my son Joe is a nomad. So he right now lives in a yurt, which is his winter quarters. But prior to that, for 2 years, he lived in his Sprinter van. And the Sprinter van culture is it's nomadic, but it's got of what would you say? They're covert. I don't know, but what they like about their van is when you see the thing, it looks like a trade guy's van. Looks like a plumbing van or something like that. So they can park it on anywhere they want, close the drapes, crawl in the back, make dinner, hang out, watch TV, sleep, and get up in the morning and go. So if you have an RV, I'm sure people probably know this, but if you have an RV and you're traveling and you say, oh, well, we got to stop for the night. Well, you just can't stop any place you want, because although you might get away with it, you might get hassled too. You might have some cop with a nightstick. Hey, you can't stop here. You can't stop here. You got to stop at a campground. And I was hearing that campgrounds are like $75 a night, right? So, and I guess they're justified in charging that because if you don't like it, then stay at a Walmart parking lot. Or if you don't like that, then get a hotel room. And I can tell you, after having a hotel room for a couple of nights, I've had that. I don't need to do that ever again. So I think for us, what I would do, let's say I have this bus and all my equipment fits on it. I have a little broadcasting place. So if we're going to do this show, and let's say we're in Omaha, Nebraska, and we're going to do this show, I would say, this is Mark coming to you from Omaha, Nebraska. And let me tell you what Omaha, Nebraska looks like. And I don't know, it'd be like the man on the street. I could tell you, hey, what it's like here, walk around. We know people, just tribes people here, who if I said, okay, I'm heading to Texas, who's got someplace along the way that I can pull in and crash for the night? I need it to be, so many hours from home. And I'm sure there's people. And as time goes on, the network will get greater and greater and greater. And I was talking with one of the nomads at the class. I mean, him and his wife and 3 kids, they've been nomads for 2 years. He sold his house in Dallas for he couldn't not sell it because of the way things have gone up. But still, it takes a lot of guts, because you sell your house and then what? If you're going to live in that area and work in that area, then you got to get another house. And so you sold your house for, let's say, $500,000 or something, and then you want a comparable house. You may not find one for $500,000. So it sounds like a lot of money, but then if you have to buy another house, it's like, well, that's gone. But he sold it, and I don't know what he's paid, what he sold it for, but he said something around 4 times what he paid for it. And so then he bought a truck, looked like a 1-ton Ford, and then a 5th wheel. And they stayed in this 5th wheel, just bouncing around. He works remotely. I'd say that takes a lot of guts to do that. But talking with them, they're like, no, we should have done this 10 years ago. This is the greatest thing since canned beer. We love this. Plus the amount of money that they save. He's still working full-time remotely. And, a lot of people, the whole remote thing was a prison sentence to them. So they'd get up out of their bunk, and then they would go to their in-house desk or in-house, wherever and then work there all day, and then go back to their bunks. So it was sort of you didn't even get to drive. You didn't get to see anybody else. Where this guy, he works as many hours as he needs to, and then he's out and about and, doing what he's got to do. But that class of people is very interesting people, because they are all trigger pullers, right? A trigger puller meaning someone that has a great idea and is willing to do it. It's one thing to have an idea, but I'll never do it. Well, it's not. That's just nothing then. But these trigger puller people will do that. And wouldn't it be fun if somebody put together, and maybe we could do this. Maybe we could put together, farm tribe farms. I know I got one in Texas. There's one in Chico, Texas. All right. I know there's one in Falmouth, Michigan. There's one in, I know Virgil's in Minnesota, but I'm not exactly sure what town it is. Anyway, there's places all over, like Justin's in Dundee, Michigan, and he's got a farm there. Now, if you were let's say you're in the tribe, let's say that you have one of these on your vehicle, and you show up with one of these on your vehicle. Then there's an unwritten agreement that you could park there for, a while, maybe. Or at least, I don't know. I don't know how we do that exactly. Because you might have somebody just buy one of these $5 stickers, and it's like, I can stay at your farm as long as I want. I got my sticker. Mark said I could. I don't know. But through the tribe, through the Facebook tribe, you could say, hey, I'm going here. Is there anybody along the way that I could crash with, or they could, park my RV or my trailer or my bus? It might, yeah, I would say that you would get some hits on that. I personally, I really love this idea so much. I like these people. I really like these people. So I really want to encourage people to get into this whole thing, because we're working a project here. It's called Baker's Green Acres Back 40, and where I'm putting in a road from the back. I want to put in a small cabin there, like a caretaker's outfit, with bundles of firewood and, I don't know, could be some supplies, some, stuff that you might need. Maybe we could even have a little store down there, something like that. And when people pull in, it has to be done through, not exactly sure how we're going to do this, whether we're going to do it through Airbnb or Homestead Host or something like that. Homestead Harvest. I don't know. There's a couple of them. We're not exactly sure, but there should be like 5 sites down there just along the perimeter road. There's just a wide spot. You pull off. There's a campfire ring. You can just pull in there and stay for, a nominal amount of money per night to help us with the bills. And, if you want to come visit the store or the outpost up here, there'll be directions, like a walking path to come all the way up here and things like that. So that would be kind of fun, I think. That'd be kind of neat. And then the next door, it's a little closer to civilization, and we wanted to put in a few pads there that would actually have a water hookup and electrical hookup. And then you'd have access to, primitive land, hiking and all that stuff. And maybe we'd let people hunt there in the fall time and things like that. I don't know. Maybe go in there and practice your bushcraft. Oh, and then in the back on that side, there's deep, dark woods that man has never seen. And we might just put some primitive camping back there, where you could tenting, you could tent in. There's a really deep ditch, so you'd have to shimmy across that on a rope, or swing across it with all your stuff. And yeah. So what do we got here? What do we got? All right, Justin says, there is an app that farmers register across the USA for people to stay a night or a week. You must have stole that idea from me, and I just had it. Wow. Okay. I wonder, Sarah, are you planning to come out here in March, UNT? Oh, I got to check this out. Shout out to Sarah and Taylor's YouTube channel. City to Gritty. Is that right? You all should check it out. All right, I'm gonna. These are the folks that we had dinner with out in Texas that live in a container home. Taylor welded 5 containers together, and it still looks pretty rustic on the outside, but you go inside and you cannot believe it. Just real high ceilings, real classy, but utilized stuff, stuff that he scrounged around. I was so inspired leaving there. So inspired that I actually called Sean, Sarah. You might not know this yet, but to see, I don't care about the stigma, by the way. I don't care what I'm driving. I'll be driving chitty, chitty, bang, bang, and I could care less what somebody looks down their nose at me because I'm in a school bus. I could care less, right? But Keith, my 18-year-old son, I think that maybe Sean could benefit from his first class that he's doing. Is it next month? If he had some help, had a guy there just in case. And I thought, I offered him Keith, and I said, I'll pay for the plane ticket, just so long as you pick him up from the airport and get him back to the airport. But I want to make sure that he gets over to Taylor and Sarah's house, to see that operation, because Keith and I think Keith and Taylor would hit it off, because that's Keith. That is Keith, buying and selling all the time. He bought a snowmobile Saturday, right? The Polaris Indy 700 with a blown engine in it. And so he was betting that the engine wasn't blown. The guy wanted $700 for it. It was really nice condition, new track on it, a lot of nice new stuff. He went over and looked at it. Yep, it had a blown engine on it. And he said, well, I can give you $5. And the guy took it. So he brought it home. He assessed what he was going to have to do on it. And he realized that if he did the repair, it would probably be complete by late next month. And that's the end of the season. So he'd wind up sitting on it all summer long. And he didn't want to do that. So he put it back up for sale. And he said, well, it's time for the old girl to go down the road. He had it 3 days. And he sold it. Sold it today. And he just pretty happy with himself. Made 2 bills off of it. Not bad. Not bad. He bought a car. I probably shouldn't be telling these secrets, but he bought a car. I think I told you this the other night. Yeah, I did. And I don't know what he gave for it, but I know it was under $1,000. And this is a fairly new car that had the front end smashed. So it just made it under totaled. It went into the body shop. They put 2 new fenders on it, new hood, all the new parts in the front to hold the radiator and all that other stuff. It's all plastic on this. It was a Volkswagen, real sporty looking Volkswagen. And then the owner of the shop calls the guy and says, hey, this car doesn't run. And the guy said, well, fix it. And he's like, we're a body shop. We're not mechanics. We don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know what's wrong with it. So the guy got cold feet on it and said, screw it. Don't do anything more. He got the money on it and sold this just as a junk. But it wasn't condemned. So Keith bought it. He got to looking at the intake manifold and it had a crack on it. It was a plastic intake manifold with a crack. So he went and got another one from the junkyard, put it on. The thing purrs like a kitten. And he took it for a ride. Oh, yeah, I did tell you this. He took it for a ride a little prematurely just to see what she'll do. And the hood did one of these, whoop, up against the windshield, cracked the windshield, ruined both fenders, ruined the hood. So, but the car's worth $8,000. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that around if a guy wants to look. But I thought it would be better for him to get some helpful hints from the master there. City to gritty. But I don't know if he's going to do it, because I think he got accepted today for a EMT class. Fire departments here are hurting so bad for firemen and EMTs that they are sending guys. They're paying them to go to school, and I think it's like an 8-week school. They have to go, and they're paying them while they go to school. So he had an interview today, and he thought that he's going to get it. So I don't know if he'll be able to go. And be honest, I'm thinking Keith, he knows a lot of this stuff already, but I told him everything that I saw when I was down at your place. Highly, highly motivated when I left there. I thought that was cool as anything. All right. Okay, Harvest Host and Hip Camp. That's what Jill says. When you are ready, we'll come for a visit in Michigan. Well, I'm ready. And we're having the charcuterie class in March, and a bunch of people are coming from Texas. Sean's got like, I think there's 5 or 6 of them already. So he's the guy you ought to talk to. But we got plenty of room for you to park here. All right. Vindicti says, yep, I bought my bus, a handicap shuttle bus, not school bus, for $5,000 with less than 100,000 miles on it. The city buys them for 100,000 brand new and then auctions them for cheap after 5 years. I wouldn't mind having one of those, as kind of a daily driver. You could have a little workshop in there. That would be pretty neat. Yeah, the wheelchair lift might be good for loading livestock. Tamarack, hello everybody. I know I'm late. My place in Arkansas is available for tribe members anytime. Right on. Gary Rockwell, I think this is Belva's husband. Given the choice, would a spring house or a pond be better? We have a wet area that is the beginning of a creek. We want to use it as a source of water for the livestock on pasture. Well, I think it sounds like you know what a spring house is. You could have both. A spring house, actually, a lot of times a spring, it might come out of the side of a hill, right? And what they would do is they would build a house there and then develop that spring so it's coming out in a pipe, right? So you dig back in the hill and then you put a collection pipe in there and maybe a perforated pipe or something like that, or a series of them. And then you channel it all down into one pipe. And then inside the house, it would be smart if it was all built out of stones, actually, so it was nice and thick. Be great if it was in the shade and with a roof on it that was pretty thick. And then in the house, you have a series of tanks that go around, and the water comes in and it fills this tank, and then this tank overflows and it fills the next tank only by maybe an inch, and then the next tank, and it overflows and fills this one, right? So the idea is you've got this water that's coming out of the side of the hill that will be down, it can be 45 degrees. It can be pretty low depending on what it's coming out of, how fast it's coming out and stuff. If it's coming out of rock and it's coming out quickly, it can come out of rock very quickly at a very low temperature. And because you've got all that cold water exposed to the air inside of the spring house, it's closed in. You might have a window in it for light, but You really want to keep it kind of tight because you want to keep the cold in. And then finally it flows out someplace. But the idea of the spring house is you could put milk in there. You could put a milk can in, submerged down in to the water, and it would get it down to 45 degrees anyway. We had a milk cooling tank here years before we bought the place, but there was one. You can see where it was. And, the milk cans that you see, what they would do is they would fill them, and then they would they'd put them in this tank, and they'd fill the tank up with well water. And as soon as the tanks got a little bit light and started to float, then they'd stop filling it. And so the milk would cool in there, and they'd be putting a little bit of water in, and it would overflow out. The warm stuff would overflow out. They kind of still do things like that now. They use a heat exchanger or an intercooler, they call it, to cool milk off. But yeah, you could have both. You could have the spring house and a pond, because the overflow out of the spring house could go into a pond. And yeah, I think that would be great. We have a place on this farm that I've told this story many times, but I got my tractor stuck in there when we first got here, and I had to go to the neighbors. It was like I've had to go to them 3 times and say, "Yeah, I'm stuck." And he'd come down and he said, I got stuck in here in like 1962. And I said, "You did, eh?" And he says, "Yeah, I did." And I went up to the farmhouse and I told the old man that I was stuck down there. And I'm going to have to go find somebody with a bigger tractor. And the old man that was up here, his name was Stub. He was here for a long time. He was the son of the man who cleared this property. And Stubb says to Jack, "You damn fool. I don't even go in there with my mules." Right. So that's how that story goes. Well, that area, after I went in there with my tractor and I got scolded by Jack about going in there with my tractor, I fenced it off. You couldn't go in there to do anything, really. It was so wet. It was so overgrown. There was just bulrushes everywhere. You couldn't really see where the water was coming from. Nobody really knew. But I put pigs in there. And after a while, they had eaten the bark off of all the bulrushes. They would eat the bark off as far as they could, and the bulrushes would die. They would tip over. We went in there and we pulled them all into bunches, and piled it up. And eventually they dried out and we burned them off. Gone now. Gone. Just cleared it. But where the water comes out, it was coming out like, in like 25 fingers, right? And what the pigs did was they worked that back. Everywhere the water was coming out, there was just a lot of vegetation. There was a lot of moss and stuff in there that they found really attractive. And they worked it all the way back to the source. And now there's just 2 places where it comes out. The spring comes out. And I could, and I need a piece of equipment to do this, but at some point I could trench from right there all the way down to the pond on both sides, lay a pipe in, and the water would find its way into that pipe and go down into the pond. And then everything else has dried up. I could get in there and I could disc the whole thing up, and I could actually plant it in grass. And that's on the list of things that I need to do, right? Because right now it's a pasture that I grow a ton of grass on, but I can't get in there and cut the grass off. And It's low on the priority because if I had to get in there and disc it all up, I would really be disturbing quite a bit. And the cows don't really care. They go in and they eat whatever grows in there, and they do just fine on it. It's one of those areas that I had made a decision that, okay, I'm not going to cut this anymore. I'm just going to use this as a field to let the cows in. They eat what's on it. And then I had gone in there several times and seeded it with trefoil and clover just to really blow it out. So, all right, let's see what else we got here. Are you telling all the secrets? Loose asshole. Hey, Lou. Loose asshole says, I'm a farmer. And Christopher Hernandez says LGB. LGB. Loose asshole. Likes my glasses, huh? Your beard is so full. Also, Christopher and Lou are buds. Cool. I like that. All right. So there we go. Wow. I went an hour and 40 minutes or hour 40 minutes on the thing. Tomorrow, I think what would be fun to talk about would be the diversification of livestock on the homestead, and what that means and how to work that so you get maximum impact out of that diverse interaction on the farm. So there you go. I'm going to hit it for now. Appreciate everybody coming by. Let's see. Oh, I have been hearing quite a bit of information lately. And I believe at this point that the direction that I am going to work is, I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic. I think a lot of things are getting fixed, but a lot of things got broken intentionally, right? And I think as this situation progresses, a lot more stuff is going to get broken. Like a bunch of punk kids on the way out the door, they're going to break stuff. So the supply chain, that there's a problem there. There's a huge problem. I mean, we kind of think of, oh, well, if we can just get good leadership in there, everything will be all right. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. And there's a lady that's in Michigan, and a lot of you guys may have heard of her. Her name is Penny Kelly. And some of the stuff that she talks about, if things weren't so crazy right now, you might say she's a nut. You might. But things are so crazy right now. Yeah, she seems quite level-headed. And we're kind of living in a time where people are waking up to the amount of deceit that's happened in their lifetime. I certainly have. And she believes that we have about 10 years ahead of us to rebuild the damage that's been done. The direction that the deep state wanted to go was in the direction of this Great Reset. And the Great Reset is where they make slaves out of everybody except a very small group of people, globalist types. And they think they're due this because some humans are better than other humans, and they're definitely the ones that are due a better cut of the pie and stuff. And I don't know. I think they've underestimated their adversary, and I kind of believe that it's all over except for the crying. I don't think that they're going to get what they want done. They're just playing out their plan, because nobody's going to say, okay, that's it. It's sort of like the end of the Third Reich. It was doomed for a couple of years, but nobody said, all right, Hitler, give it up. We're going to let's quit. They fought, and Hitler wanted them to fight until the last man. So this outfit is the same way. They want people to fight until the last man. Don't know if that's going to happen because they don't have very disciplined ranks. And so I don't think they're going to get what they want, but they are going to break a bunch of stuff on the way out. And so I think that we really need to continue our preparation, but it needs to be a permanent preparation. It needs to be more permanently based. There's nothing wrong with laying in some supplies, but starting to think along the lines of production is what I think is going to really throw a wrench in what they want to do. It really is. So I believe that what I've done all along is prepare for a day where I have more hands than I have jobs, and so I just wanted to pass that on. Okay, Vindicti is saying controlled collapse so they can herd us into the smart cities where we are in surveillance state slavery. The war will never stop. Yeah. I think there's a bit of a bitter pill that they're going to have to swallow. I think that I've been where a lot of people are just arriving. I've been there for a long time, and it's anger, and I look at my innocent children, I look at my innocent grandchildren, and I think, I don't want you to deal with these guys. And I'm grown up, and I don't think that we want to just, part ways and let them come back another time. I think that when this begins, there's going to be some serious problems on their side. We've put up with a ton of their shenanigans for a long time, the deceit and all that stuff. And this process that we've been going through, it's like now you know who they are. You know exactly who they are. And we'll just see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. Okay, Inga's saying, I've heard cancer have an uptick for the monococcal and the prick. Yeah. Well, if you look at some of the great dictators, the way they've done it, Stalin being he was one of the more successful dictators. But I believe he was assassinated in the end too. He did it with food. He got to move people wherever he wanted to with food. And they did the same sort of thing as is going on in this country right now with the centralization. But right now, a lot of intelligent people are looking at the situation and they can see a solution, and they're pursuing that solution on an individual basis. So sometimes I'll just say stuff to Jill, right? And I said to her today, it was a rhetorical question, but I said, where do you think society's headed? And I could see her start to think, and it was because I had thought that earlier in the day. Where is society headed? Well, society right now is probably, the majority of them are kind of sheep, and you watch them. They watch each other, they follow each other. This one goes this way, oh, I guess I'll go with him, and stuff like that. So they're just going where they're going. And what the deep state does, or the communists do, is they make it easy for them. It's like, hey, you can stay home because of the Wu flu. You believe in the Wu flu, don't you? You get a $1,200 check. Oh yeah, I believe in the Wu flu. Oh yeah. Well, then put your mask on. Okay. So it's easy, so they do it, right? But it's not working anymore, right? So because they're not able to give out the kudos anymore. And so society is going, survivors go, because they're going to want to survive. And a way of life that ensures survival is the homesteading way of life. Right? So I asked that question, but I believe that society, the society that survives, is going to go where we are going, where the tribe is going. If my grandfather were alive, none of the stuff that I talk about here wouldn't be a surprise to him. He did all this stuff. It's what they did. He was kind of at the beginning of where they started to move into town, right? It was better for him to move into town. And so he lived outside of Boston in Hyde Park. He was an industrial arts teacher at South Boston High School. But he had a big lot, and he had a great big garden, and he didn't have any animals, but he had stuff going on all the time. So there we go. All right, I'm going to get off. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Anyone can farm. Good night.